The rain hammered against the windshield of the black Range Rover as Sarah Collins navigated through the neon-drenched streets of downtown Atlanta. Beside her, Max sat alert in the passenger seat, his Belgian Malinois ears perked forward, scanning every shadow with trained precision. The modified tactical vest wrapped around his muscular frame contained surveillance equipment worth more than most people's cars, micro-cameras, audio sensors, and a communication relay directly linked to MI6 headquarters in London. Sarah's green eyes flickered to the rearview mirror, then back to the road. 3 years of intensive training in England had transformed her from one of Atlanta's best K9 officers into something else entirely. Something deadlier, something the world would only know by a number. 07. Her earpiece crackled to life. Agent Collins, this is Q Branch. Target vehicle is 2 blocks ahead, turning onto Peachtree Street. Maintain distance, but keep visual contact. Copy that, Sarah replied, her voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins. She downshifted and accelerated smoothly, the Range Rover's engine purring like a predator. Max shifted slightly, his dark eyes fixed on the road ahead, as if he understood every word of the transmission. The target was a silver Mercedes sedan, suspected of transporting encrypted communications equipment for an organization known only as the Syndicate. For 6 months, MI6 had been tracking this international criminal network, a hydra of arms dealers, hackers, and mercenaries that operated in the shadows of global politics. And now, that shadow had fallen over Atlanta. Sarah's jaw tightened as she spotted the Mercedes 3 cars ahead. The intelligence was solid. The Syndicate was planning something catastrophic, something that would coincide with the upcoming Global Leadership Summit scheduled in Atlanta in 72 hours. World leaders from 30 nations would gather at the Georgia World Congress Center, making it a perfect target for terrorism. The Mercedes turned suddenly into a narrow alley between 2 abandoned warehouses. Sarah's instincts screamed caution, but she couldn't lose the target. She spun the wheel and followed, rain spraying from her tires as Max braced himself against the dashboard. The alley was darker than she expected, the overhead streetlights either broken or deliberately disabled. Sarah slowed, reaching for the Walther PPK holstered at her side. Max growled low in his throat, a sound she'd learned to trust more than any technological sensor. Q Branch, I'm going dark for 30 seconds. Target entered the alley system near the old industrial district. Negative 007. You need backup. Extracting now could compromise. Sarah switched off her earpiece. Sometimes the bureaucracy of intelligence work got in the way of actual intelligence. She'd learned that from James Bond himself during those final training sessions before his retirement. Trust your instincts, Sarah, he told her, his weathered face serious. The gadgets will fail, the intel will be wrong, but your gut, that'll keep you alive. The Mercedes had stopped 50 yards ahead, its taillights glowing like demon eyes in the darkness. Sarah parked the Range Rover and glanced at Max. Ready, partner? Max's tail wagged once, his version of affirmative. They exited the vehicle in synchronized silence. Sarah moved along the left wall of the alley while Max padded along the right, their years of partnership making verbal commands unnecessary. The rain had softened to a drizzle, but the wet pavement muffled their approach. As they closed the distance, Sarah noticed something wrong. The Mercedes was empty, driver's door open, engine still running. It was a trap. "Max, heel!" she whispered urgently. The explosion came from behind them. Sarah's Range Rover erupted in a ball of flame, the shockwave slamming her against the brick wall. Her ears rang with a high-pitched whine as debris rained down around her. Through the chaos, she saw Max, unhurt, already moving, scanning for threats with his enhanced tactical senses. Figures emerged from the shadows, 4 of them, armed, professional. Sarah's training kicked in before conscious thought. She rolled left as bullets sparked against the brick where her head had been a second earlier. Her Walter barked twice, and the nearest operative went down. Max launched himself at another 60 pounds of trained lethality, taking the man to the ground before he could bring his weapon to bear. The remaining two operatives were good, former military, Sarah guessed from their movement patterns. They flanked her, coordinating their fire to pin her down. She was outgunned and outpositioned. Then Max was there, his tactical camera feeding real-time positions to the heads-up display in Sarah's left contact lens. She didn't question the technology anymore. She simply trusted it. Trusted him. She feinted right, then dove left, coming up with her weapon tracking the exact position Max's camera showed her. 2 shots, 2 targets down. Silence fell over the alley, broken only by the crackling flames from her destroyed vehicle and the drumming rain. Sarah moved to each operative, checking vitals and securing weapons. All 4 were unconscious or dead. She photographed their faces with her phone. The images would automatically upload to MI6's facial recognition database. "Good work, boy," she said softly, kneeling to check Max for injuries. He licked her hand once, then resumed his alert posture. No wounds, no hesitation, just absolute professionalism. Her earpiece crackled back to life. She must have accidentally reactivated it during the fight. "Luro 7, report. We registered an explosion at your location." "I'm fine, Q Branch. Targets were expecting me. This wasn't random surveillance. They knew we were coming." A different voice cut in, deeper and laden with authority. "Agent Collins, this is M. Return to the safe house immediately. We have a situation." Sarah knew better than to argue with M, the head of MI6's Foreign Intelligence Service. She whistled for Max, and together they moved through the alley system, avoiding the main streets where Atlanta PD would soon swarm in response to the explosion. 20 minutes later, Sarah stood in the bathroom of a nondescript apartment in Buckhead, washing dried blood from a cut above her eyebrow. Max lapped water from a bowl in the corner, seemingly unbothered by the evening's violence. The safe house was equipped with everything a field agent might need: secure communications, weapons cache, medical supplies, and a fully stocked kitchen. Sarah had stayed here twice before, during her initial transition from police work to intelligence operations. She stared at her reflection in the mirror. At 33, she looked younger than her years, but her eyes held something ancient, a weariness that came from seeing too much darkness in the world. The training scars on her knuckles told stories she'd never share at dinner parties. Not that she attended many dinner parties anymore. The secure laptop on the dining table chimed. Sarah dried her hands and sat down, Max positioning himself at her feet with military precision. The screen flickered to life, revealing M's stern face via encrypted video feed. "Agent Collins, I'm glad you're unharmed." "Thank you, sir. The operatives were waiting for me. Someone leaked our surveillance schedule." M's expression darkened. "We're aware. We have a mole, possibly in Q Branch itself. That's why I'm bringing you in for a face-to-face briefing. We can't risk further electronic communication." "Understood. When and where?" "Tomorrow morning, 0600 hours. The old Precinct building in East Atlanta, the one scheduled for demolition. You know it?" Sarah's breath caught. Yes, she knew it. She'd worked out of that building for 7 years before MI6 recruited her. It held memories, both proud and painful. "I know it," she said quietly. M nodded. "Good. Come alone. Bring Max, obviously, but no other personnel. The situation has escalated beyond our initial projections. The Syndicate isn't just planning a terrorist attack during the summit. They're planning something that could destabilize global security infrastructure. We need someone who understands Atlanta, someone with your unique skill set and partnership with Max. You're our best asset for this operation." The screen went dark. Sarah sat in silence, processing the information. A mole in MI6, a catastrophic attack in her hometown, and a meeting at the place where her old life ended and this new one began. She closed her eyes and let her mind drift back 7 years, to a cold November night when she'd been just another cop trying to make a difference. 7 years ago, Officer Sarah Collins pulled her K9 unit cruiser into the alley behind the abandoned textile factory on Memorial Drive. Her partner back then had been Rex, a German shepherd with a nose for narcotics and a heart bigger than his bite. "What have we got?" she'd asked her patrol sergeant over the radio. Possible 10:16 in progress. Witnesses report a juvenile male breaking into the building. Approach with caution. Sarah had approached with Rex, their flashlight beams cutting through the darkness. The factory had been closed for a decade, its windows shattered, its walls covered in graffiti. It was a haven for the homeless and the desperate. They'd found him on the second floor, huddled in a corner with a rusty crowbar clutched in his thin hands. He couldn't have been more than 16, all angles and bones, wearing clothes 3 sizes too big. His eyes were wild with fear and defiance. "Put down the weapon," Sarah had commanded, her hand on her holstered pistol. Rex growled beside her, reading the tension in the air. The boy's voice had cracked. "I wasn't hurting nobody. I just needed a place to sleep." Sarah had seen it in his eyes. Not criminality, but desperation. The kind of desperation that came from too many nights on the street, too many meals skipped, too many doors slammed in a young face. She'd made a choice that night. Instead of arresting him, she'd taken him to a youth shelter, used her connections to get him into a housing program, checked on him every week for months, making sure he stayed in school, stayed clean, stayed alive. His name was Marcus Reed, and he'd promised her with tears streaming down his face that he'd never forget what she'd done for him. Present day. Sarah opened her eyes, the memory fading like smoke. She wondered where Marcus was now, whether he'd made something of himself or fallen back into the street's cruel embrace. She'd lost track of him after joining MI6, the demands of training and missions, leaving no time for the personal connections of her old life. Max whined softly, sensing her melancholy. "I'm okay, boy," she whispered, scratching behind his ears. "Just ghosts. We all have them." She prepared for bed, but sleep came reluctantly. When it did, her dreams were filled with fire and shadows, with explosions in dark alleys and the faces of young boys who needed saving. At 05:30 hours, Sarah was already dressed in tactical gear, checking her weapons with practiced efficiency. Max sat by the door, his vest secured, his eyes bright with anticipation. They made a strange pair. The woman who'd once saved lost souls on Atlanta's streets, and the dog who now helped her hunt monsters in the darkness. The drive to East Atlanta took 20 minutes through pre-dawn traffic. The old Precinct building stood like a tombstone against the brightening sky, scheduled for demolition in 2 weeks. Yellow caution tape surrounded it, and all the windows were boarded up. Sarah parked 2 blocks away and approached on foot, Max ranging ahead to scout for threats. The building's main entrance was chained, but Sarah knew a side door that patrol officers had used for smoke breaks. It was unlocked. Inside, the precinct smelled of mold and memories. Sarah's footsteps echoed through empty halls where she'd once walked with purpose and pride. The briefing room was on the 2nd floor, and that's where she'd find M. But as she climbed the stairs, Max suddenly froze, his ears pinned back. He growled a deep rumble that made Sarah's blood run cold. They weren't alone. Sarah drew her Walter and pressed herself against the wall, moving with practiced silence. Max stayed close, his body coiled and ready. The briefing room door was ajar. Through the gap, Sarah could see a figure standing with his back to her, hands in his pockets, looking at the empty chairs where roll call had once been held. "Come in, Agent Collins," the figure said without turning. "I've been waiting for you." The voice was wrong. Too young. Not M. Sarah kicked the door open, weapon raised. "Identify yourself. Now." The figure turned slowly, raising his hands in a gesture of peace. He was young, maybe 23, with sharp features and eyes that held a haunting familiarity. He wore expensive tactical clothing, the kind favored by private military contractors, and a thin scar ran along his jawline. "Hello, Officer Collins," he said with a sad smile. "Or should I say, Agent 007? It's been a long time." Sarah's world tilted on its axis as recognition crashed through her like a tidal wave. "Marcus?" she whispered, her weapon wavering. "Marcus Reed." The young man nodded slowly. "I never forgot you, Sarah. I never forgot what you did for me." His smile faded. "And now I'm here to return the favor. Because the Syndicate is going to destroy this city, and you're the only one who can stop them." He took a step forward, and Sarah saw the pain in his eyes, the burden of secrets too heavy for one person to carry. "But there's something you need to know first," Marcus continued, his voice breaking. "Something that's going to hurt. Because I'm not here as your friend, Sarah. I'm here as your enemy's messenger." The world seemed to hold its breath. "I work for the Syndicate," Marcus said quietly, "and they sent me to kill you." The silence in the abandoned precinct briefing room stretched like a knife blade between them. Sarah's Walter PPK remained steady, trained on Marcus Reed's chest, even as her mind reeled from his confession. Max's growl had deepened into something primal, his body coiled to attack on her command. Marcus stood perfectly still, hands raised, his eyes never leaving Sarah's face. The morning light filtering through the boarded windows cast shadows across his features, making him look older than his 23 years. The scar on his jawline seemed to pulse in the dim light. "Lower your weapon," Sarah said, her voice cold as winter steel. "Slowly, then explain why I shouldn't put a bullet through your skull right now." Marcus reached carefully into his jacket. Sarah's finger tightened on the trigger, but he moved with deliberate slowness, extracting a manila envelope. He tossed it onto the dusty table between them. "Because I'm not here to kill you, Sarah. I'm here to save you, and maybe myself in the process." Sarah didn't lower her weapon. "You just said you work for the Syndicate. I said they sent me to kill you. I didn't say I was going to do it." Marcus's voice carried a weight of exhaustion that seemed too heavy for someone so young. "Open the envelope, please." With her free hand, Sarah retrieved the envelope, never taking her eyes off Marcus. Inside were photographs, surveillance images of her from the past 72 hours, at the grocery store, at the gym, entering the safe house in Buckhead. Every moment captured with professional precision. Her blood ran cold. "How long?" 3 weeks. They've been watching you since MI6 assigned you to investigate the Atlanta operation." Marcus lowered his hand slowly, reading her body language. "They know everything, Sarah. Your routines, your safe houses, your contact protocols, that ambush last night. I warned them you were coming." Max's growl intensified, and Sarah felt her own rage building like pressure in a sealed container. "Give me one reason why I shouldn't—" "Because I sabotaged the intelligence I gave them," Marcus interrupted. "I told them you'd be alone. I didn't mention Max. I didn't mention your tactical training. I gave them just enough to set a trap, but not enough to kill you. I needed you to survive, Sarah. I needed you to know what you're up against." Sarah's mind raced through the previous night's events. The operatives had seemed surprised by Max's intervention. Their positioning had been adequate, but not optimal. They'd underestimated her combat skills. Marcus was telling the truth, or at least a version of it. "Why?" The question came out hoarse. "Why join them? After everything? After everything you did for me?" Marcus laughed bitterly. "You want to know what happened after you saved me? I stayed clean for 2 years, got my GED, applied to colleges, and then I got recruited by a private military contractor doing work in Syria. They said I had potential. They paid for my training, and when the contract ended, the Syndicate made me an offer I couldn't refuse." "Everyone can refuse," Sarah said. "Not when they have leverage." Marcus's face hardened. "Not when they threaten to kill the one person who ever gave a damn about you." The implication hit Sarah like a physical blow. "They threatened me? 6 months ago. They showed me files, Sarah. They knew about our connection. They said if I didn't work for them, you'd have an accident, a gas leak in your apartment, a mugging gone wrong. They're very creative with their threats." Sarah finally lowered her weapon, though she didn't holster it. "So you became their operative to protect me?" "I became their operative because I'm a coward," Marcus's voice cracked, "but I've been feeding bad intel to them for months, delaying their operations, sabotaging equipment, trying to buy time for someone to stop them. And then I found out they assigned me to kill you, and I realized this is it. This is where I either become the monster they want me to be, or I become the man you believed I could be." Max had stopped growling. though his body remained tense. Sarah had learned to trust her partner's instincts, and right now, Max seemed uncertain rather than hostile. That was significant. "What's the Syndicate planning?" Sarah asked. Marcus moved to the table, pulling up a chair. Sarah noticed his hands trembling slightly, fear or adrenaline she couldn't tell. He pulled out a smartphone and began swiping through encrypted files. The Global Leadership Summit isn't their real target. It's a distraction. They're planning to detonate 3 electromagnetic pulse bombs across Atlanta's power grid during the summit. Every electronic system in a 50-mile radius will be fried. Hospitals, emergency services, financial systems, all gone. And in the chaos, they're going to execute something bigger. What could be bigger than an EMP attack? Marcus's face went pale. They're going to steal weapons-grade plutonium from the Centers for Disease Control. The CDC stores radiological materials for research, enough to build a dozen dirty bombs. With Atlanta's infrastructure crippled and emergency services blind, they'll have a 12-hour window to extract the material and disappear. Sarah felt the world tilt beneath her feet. The implications were staggering. A dirty bomb in any major city would kill thousands and render entire neighborhoods uninhabitable for decades. Multiple dirty bombs could destabilize global security for generations. "When?" she demanded. 72 hours. The summit opens with a gala dinner at the Georgia World Congress Center. That's when the EMPs detonate. The CDC raid happens during the blackout. Sarah's tactical mind was already working through scenarios. "We need to contact MI6 immediately. Get backup. Evacuate the city." "You can't." Marcus stood abruptly. "I told you, they have a mole in your organization. Every communication you make gets intercepted. Every plan you share gets compromised. That's how they knew about last night's surveillance. That's how they've stayed 3 steps ahead of every intelligence agency in the world. Then how do we stop them?" Marcus pulled up a map on his phone, showing Atlanta's power grid infrastructure. "The EMP devices are already in place at 3 substations. I have the locations, but they're guarded by Syndicate operatives, and the devices are rigged with tamper sensors. If we approach wrong, they detonate remotely and the whole plan accelerates." Sarah studied the map, her mind calculating angles of approach, tactical considerations, resource allocation. "We'll need a team. Specialists, bomb disposal, electronic warfare." "We have you and Max," Marcus interrupted. "That's it. That's all we can trust. Anyone else could be the mole or could accidentally leak information to the mole. We're on our own, Sarah." The weight of it settled over her like a lead blanket. 1 agent, 1 dog, against an international criminal organization planning the largest terrorist attack on American soil since 9/11. "Tell me everything you know about the Syndicate structure," Sarah said. "Leadership, resources, backup plans, everything." Boom. For the next 2 hours, Marcus talked while Sarah recorded everything on an air-gapped tablet that couldn't transmit data. She learned about the Syndicate's recruitment methods, their funding streams, their operational security. She learned about Victor Cross, the organization's enigmatic leader who no intelligence agency had ever photographed. She learned about the network of sleeper cells, the corrupted officials, the vast web of influence that made the Syndicate nearly invisible. And she learned about Marcus's role in it all, a mid-level operative assigned to logistics and surveillance, trusted but not inner circle. He'd used that position to gather intelligence while appearing loyal, walking a tightrope between betrayal and survival. "There's something else," Marcus said as the briefing wound down. "Something I haven't told you yet." Sarah looked up from her notes. "What?" "One of the Syndicate's top operatives, someone they call the Ghost, has been tracking you personally for the past week. Not for intelligence gathering, for elimination. They know you're the biggest threat to their operation, and they want you dead before the summit." "Who is this Ghost?" Marcus shook his head. "Nobody knows. He doesn't appear in any files, doesn't communicate electronically. He operates completely offline, taking orders through dead drops and coded messages. But I've heard the others talk about him. They're terrified of him. He's never failed a mission." "Then he's overdue for his first failure." Sarah said grimly. Max barked once, a sharp sound of agreement. Marcus actually smiled. God, I missed your confidence. Even when the world's falling apart, you sound like you can fix it. That's the job. Sarah stood, holstering her weapon finally. But if we're doing this, I need to know you're committed. No more divided loyalties. No more playing both sides. Marcus stood as well, and Sarah saw the scared 16-year-old boy she'd saved all those years ago, still visible behind the hardened operative's exterior. I'm all in, whatever it takes. Good, because we start tonight. First target is the EMP device at the Edgewood substation. We disable it, extract any intelligence we can, and work our way through the other 2 locations before the summit. The Edgewood station is guarded by at least 6 operatives, military trained, heavily armed. Sarah smiled without humor. Then they're going to have a very bad night. 16 hours later, Sarah crouched in the darkness outside the Edgewood Avenue power substation, Max silent beside her. She wore full tactical gear, matte black, with integrated body armor and a communications headset, synced to Marcus's position 200 yards east. Her Walther was holstered on her thigh, but tonight's primary weapon was a suppressed MP5 submachine gun acquired from one of her emergency weapons caches. Radio check, she whispered. Clear copy, Marcus replied. I count 6 hostiles, 2 on the north perimeter, 2 at the main entrance, 2 patrolling the transformer yard, all armed with automatic weapons. Pattern recognition. Patrol circuit every 4 minutes. 30-second window when the north side is blind. Sarah checked her watch. Mark time. Timer started. 3 minutes, 40 seconds. Max pressed against her leg, his tactical vest fully equipped with low-light cameras and audio sensors. Through her heads-up display, Sarah could see what Max saw. Thermal signatures of the guards, movement patterns, potential cover positions. Remember the plan, she said to Marcus. You create the distraction at the east fence. I go in through the north. Max provides overwatch and early warning. We disable the device, photograph everything, and extract before they can call for backup. And if things go wrong, they won't. But if they do, Sarah's voice went cold. Then we adapt and overcome. That's what we do. The timer in her display counted down. 90 seconds, 60, 30. Moving to position, Marcus whispered. Sarah watched her display as his thermal signature relocated toward the east fence. He'd explained during their planning that he could approach that side without raising suspicion. The guards knew him, would assume he was there for a routine check. 10 seconds. Sarah rose from cover, moving like liquid shadow across the open ground. Max followed 3 steps behind, his paws silent on the wet grass. They reached the north fence just as Marcus's distraction began, a loud argument about protocol violations, angry voices carrying across the substation. Sarah scaled the chain-link fence in under 5 seconds, dropping silently on the other side. Max squeezed through a gap she'd cut in the fence earlier during reconnaissance. They moved through the transformer yard, using the massive electrical equipment as cover. Through her earpiece, she heard Marcus's heated discussion escalating. He was good at this, she realized, playing the arrogant operative, demanding answers, buying her precious seconds. The EMP device was housed in a maintenance shed near the main transformer. Sarah approached from the blind side, checking for electronic sensors. Clean. The Syndicate was confident in their guards, less so in their technology. Max took up position outside, his enhanced hearing tracking every footstep, every radio transmission. Sarah entered the shed, pulling a small tactical flashlight from her vest. The EMP device sat on a workbench, looking deceptively simple. A brushed aluminum case about the size of a briefcase, covered in warning labels and covered with wiring. Sarah photographed it from multiple angles, then carefully opened the access panel. Inside was a nightmare of electronics and explosives. The device was exactly as Marcus had described, powerful enough to cripple the power grid for miles, with tamper sensors that would detonate if she tried to disable it improperly. But Sarah had trained with some of the best bomb disposal specialists in the world. She recognized the components, understood the circuit logic. More importantly, she recognized the manufacturer, a specific electronics firm in Belarus known for supplying criminal organizations. She photographed the internal components, focusing on serial numbers and circuit board layouts. Q-Branch could use this intelligence to track the supply chain, maybe identify other syndicate operations. "Sarah, we have a problem." Marcus's voice crackled in her ear. "They're calling headquarters. They want verification of my authorization to be here." "How long?" 2 minutes, maybe 3, before they figure out I'm not supposed to be here." Sarah closed the access panel and moved to the door. Through the gap, she could see the 2 patrol guards returning to the transformer yard. Their 4-minute circuit was complete. "Max, status." Her partner's low growl came through the audio feed. "Hostiles approaching." Sarah made a split-second decision. She couldn't disable the device without proper equipment and time, but she'd gathered valuable intelligence. Mission parameters had been met. Time to extract. "Marcus, fall back to the east extraction point. 30 seconds. Copy. Moving now." Sarah slipped from the shed, Max at her side. They moved through the transformer yard, using the shadows and equipment for cover. The patrol guards passed within 10 feet, oblivious to the threat moving through their perimeter. But as Sarah reached the north fence, alarms began shrieking throughout the facility. "All units, we have a breach. North fence, all units respond." Sarah cursed and ran. Max bounded ahead, clearing the fence gap in a single leap. Sarah hit the chain link running, scaling it with desperate speed as shouts erupted behind her. Bullets sparked against metal as the guards opened fire. Sarah dropped to the ground on the far side, rolling into cover behind a concrete barrier. Return fire would compromise the mission. She needed the Syndicate to not know what intelligence she'd gathered. "Marcus, status! Clear! I'm at the extraction point!" Max barked urgently. Sarah glanced at her display and saw why. 4 guards converging on her position, moving with tactical precision. She couldn't fight them, couldn't afford to be captured or identified. She needed an edge. "Max, go loud!" Her partner launched from cover, the speakers in his tactical vest broadcasting a recording Sarah had prepared, the sound of multiple attackers shouting in Russian, creating the illusion of a larger force. The audio came from all directions as Max circled the facility perimeter at high speed. The guards hesitated, confused by the phantom attackers. Sarah used those precious seconds to sprint toward the extraction point, her lungs burning, adrenaline singing through her veins. She reached the abandoned warehouse where they'd parked 2 blocks from the substation. Marcus had the engine running, and Max leaped into the back seat just as Sarah dove into the passenger side. "Go, go, go!" Marcus punched the accelerator, the stolen sedan roaring away from the facility. Behind them, guards emerged onto the street, weapons raised, but they were too late. "Did you get it?" Marcus asked, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. Sarah pulled out her phone, scrolling through the photographs. Everything. Serial numbers, circuit boards, wiring diagrams. Q-Branch can trace these components. What about disabling the device? Couldn't risk it. Too many tamper sensors, not enough time. But now we know what we're dealing with. She looked at Marcus, seeing the fear and exhilaration in his eyes. 2 more locations, 48 hours until the summit. We need to move faster. Marcus nodded, navigating through Atlanta's late-night streets with practiced ease. The next target is the Midtown substation. Heavier security, more guards, and there's something else. He was cut off as the rear window exploded inward. Sarah twisted in her seat, weapon drawn. A black motorcycle had appeared behind them, rider dressed in dark tactical gear. The shooter fired again, bullets punching through the trunk. "The ghost!" Marcus shouted, swerving violently. "He found us!" Sarah leaned out the window, returning fire. The motorcycle weaved through traffic with impossible precision, closing the distance. The rider moved like liquid, anticipating every evasive maneuver Marcus attempted. Max barked frantically from the back seat, his camera feed showing the tactical precision of their pursuer. This wasn't some hired thug. This was a professional hunter who'd found his prey. "I can't shake him," Marcus yelled. Sarah's mind raced. They were on Ponce de Leon Avenue, heading toward downtown. Traffic was light but present. A running gun battle would draw police attention they couldn't afford. "Take the next right, into Little 5 Points." Marcus yanked the wheel, the sedan skidding through the turn. The Ghost followed, never losing ground. Sarah fired again, but the rider seemed to anticipate her shots, leaning left as bullets passed through empty air. They roared through Little 5 Points' narrow streets, past closed shops and darkened restaurants. The Ghost stayed 3 car lengths behind, methodical and patient. Then Sarah saw it, the railroad underpass ahead, low clearance, barely enough room for a car. The bridge, floor it! Marcus understood immediately. He accelerated toward the underpass as Sarah aimed carefully at the road behind them. She didn't shoot at the Ghost. She shot at the pavement. Sparks exploded from her rounds, striking concrete, creating a momentary flash that blinded the motorcycle's rider. The Ghost flinched, swerving slightly, losing a fraction of a second. It was enough. Their sedan shot through the underpass with inches to spare. The motorcycle, following at high speed, clipped the concrete barrier, the rider forced to brake hard or crash. By the time the Ghost recovered, Sarah and Marcus had disappeared into Atlanta's maze-like streets. 20 minutes later, they sat in an all-night diner, drinking coffee with shaking hands, while Max rested under the table. Around them, late-shift workers and insomniacs maintained a blessed normalcy that felt surreal after the night's violence. "That was too close," Marcus said quietly. "The Ghost has never failed. Never. And now he knows we're working together." Sarah stared into her coffee. "Then we don't give him another chance. We hit the remaining 2 sites tomorrow night. Simultaneous strikes. We split up. That's suicide. It's tactics. We divide his attention. One of us acts as bait, while the other disables the devices." "Which one of us is the bait?" Sarah met his eyes. "You've been the bait your whole life, Marcus, living between 2 worlds, never belonging to either. Tomorrow night, you get to choose. Permanently." Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded. "Okay, tell me the plan." As Sarah outlined her strategy, she saw something shift in Marcus's expression. The scared boy was disappearing, replaced by the determined man. Maybe redemption wasn't about erasing the past, she thought. Maybe it was about choosing who you became despite it. Outside, dawn was breaking over Atlanta, painting the sky in shades of amber and gold. In 48 hours, that sky might be filled with chaos and destruction. But right now, in this diner, drinking bitter coffee with a troubled young man she'd saved twice now, Sarah Collins felt something she hadn't felt in years. Hope. It was dangerous. It was foolish. It was absolutely necessary. And it was all they had. The Georgia World Congress Center rose against the Atlanta skyline like a monument to human ambition, its glass and steel facade reflecting the afternoon sun. In 36 hours, world leaders would gather inside for the opening gala of the Global Leadership Summit. Sarah Collins stood across the street, studying the building through polarized sunglasses, Max sitting alertly at her side. Her phone buzzed. "Marcus. I'm in position at the Midtown substation. Security looks heavier than intelligence suggested. At least 8 guards, maybe more inside." Sarah kept her voice low. "Can you get eyes on the EMP device?" "Not without triggering alarms. They've upgraded their sensor grid since last night. Someone's getting paranoid." "Good. Paranoid people make mistakes." Sarah checked her watch. "We proceed as planned. I'll hit the West End substation simultaneously. Divided attention, divided resources. Obey Sarah about the Ghost. We handle him if he appears. Stay focused on the mission." She ended the call and moved down the street, Max matching her pace perfectly. They'd spent the day gathering intelligence and preparing equipment, transforming a rented storage unit into a makeshift operations center. Maps covered the walls, surveillance photos pinned in clusters, weapons laid out with military precision. But something nagged at Sarah's tactical instincts. The Ghost's attack last night had been too precise, too well-timed. He'd found them within hours of their first operation, as if he'd been tracking them all along. Marcus insisted he hadn't been followed, and Sarah believed him, which meant the ghost had another source of intelligence, another way of finding them. Sarah's phone buzzed again. Unknown number. She answered cautiously. Agent Collins. The voice was mechanically distorted, gender and age impossible to determine. You have something that belongs to the Syndicate. Return the photographs from Edgewood, and your death will be quick. Sarah's grip tightened on the phone. Who is this? You know who I am. You've been running from me since last night. But you can't run forever, Sarah. Not in your own city. Not when I know every place you've ever cared about, every person you've ever saved. The emphasis on saved sent ice through Sarah's veins. The ghost. Clever girl. I'm giving you one chance because I respect what you did for Marcus. He told me the story once during a training exercise, how you pulled him from the streets, gave him hope. He actually cried while telling it. Pathetic, really. Sarah's mind raced. The ghost knew Marcus personally, had trained with him. That meant your Syndicate inner circle, not just an operative. Leadership. The distorted laugh was hollow. Leadership is such a bureaucratic term. I prefer architect. I design the operations, select the personnel, execute the vision. Marcus was one of my projects. So were the men you killed at Edgewood. So, in a way, is this entire Atlanta operation. Then you're the one I need to stop. You can't stop what you can't see, Agent Collins, but I can see you. Right now, in fact. Sarah spun, scanning the street. Pedestrians moved past, oblivious. Cars flowed through traffic. Buildings loomed on all sides, offering countless vantage points. Max growled, sensing her tension, but showed no specific threat reaction. Bluffing won't work, Sarah said. Blue tactical jacket, black jeans, Malinois with carbon fiber vest. You're standing outside the Congress Center, probably planning some futile reconnaissance. Should I wave? Sarah's blood ran cold. He was telling the truth, watching her, right now. She moved immediately, heading for the nearest building entrance, a coffee shop with large windows. Max followed, and Sarah positioned herself with her back to the wall, scanning every face, every window, every rooftop. Running to cover? Smart, but ultimately pointless. The ghost's voice remained calm, almost bored. Here's what's going to happen. Tonight you'll attempt to disable our EMP devices. You'll split up. You at West End, Marcus at Midtown. You think dividing my attention will give you an advantage. Sarah said nothing, her tactical mind reeling. He knew their plan. Knew their timing. How? But I've known your plan since you made it. The ghost continued, reading her silence. Because I've been listening to every word you've said, every conversation in that sad little diner this morning, every call between you and Marcus. That's impossible. We're using encrypted burner phones. Encryption is only as good as the hardware it runs on, and when that hardware contains my surveillance malware, well, the ghost's distorted laugh echoed. Marcus's phone was compromised 6 months ago. Every text, every call, every GPS coordinate, I've had access to all of it. Sarah felt the trap closing around her. Marcus had been the leak all along, but not intentionally. The Syndicate had been using him as an unwitting surveillance device, tracking his movements, monitoring his communications. You're wondering if you should tell him, the ghost said. Wondering if knowing he's compromised will break whatever's left of his fragile psyche. That's the beauty of this situation, Sarah. Every choice you make hurts someone you care about. What do you want? I want you to understand that you've already lost. The EMPs will detonate, the plutonium will be extracted, and you'll die trying to stop it, because that's what heroes do. They die meaninglessly, thinking they're making a difference. If you're so confident, why call? Why warn me? Because watching you struggle is entertaining. And because when you fail, when Atlanta burns and thousands die, I want you to remember this conversation. I want you to know that I gave you a chance to walk away. The line went dead. Sarah stood motionless for 10 seconds, processing the information. Then she removed the battery from her phone and crushed the SIM card under her heel. She pulled out a different phone, a truly clean device acquired 2 days ago, and called Marcus using a memorized number. We're compromised. she said when he answered. "Your phone is bugged. Everything we've discussed, every plan we've made, they've heard it all." Marcus's shocked silence spoke volumes. "Oh, God. Sarah, I swear, I didn't know." "I know you didn't, but we need new phones, new plans, and we need them in the next 3 hours. Ditch your current phone. Don't power it down. Just leave it somewhere public so they think you're still there. Meet me at the storage unit in 1 hour. Come clean. No electronics, no devices they could have tagged." She ended the call and looked down at Max. Her partner's eyes held an intelligence that sometimes seemed almost human. "Just you and me again, boy. The way it should be." Max's tail wagged once. Solidarity. 55 minutes later, Marcus arrived at the storage unit, looking haunted. He'd followed Sarah's instructions precisely. No phone, no watch, no jewelry that could contain tracking devices. He'd even changed clothes, wearing items purchased with cash from a thrift store. "I'm sorry," he said immediately. "I should have been more careful, should have checked." "Stop." Sarah's voice was firm, but not unkind. "The ghost is good, better than good. He's been doing this longer than either of us. But now we know, and we adapt." She handed him a new burner phone. "Memorize this number, then destroy the paper. No texts, no stored contacts. Voice calls only, and keep them under 30 seconds. Marcus nodded, committing the number to memory before shredding the paper. Sarah moved to the map on the wall. "New plan. The ghost knows our original strategy, so we do the opposite. Instead of simultaneous strikes tonight, we hit one target now, right now, before they can reposition resources." "Which target?" "The Congress Center itself." Marcus stared at her. "That's not one of the EMP locations." "No, but it's where the summit happens. And after thinking about the ghost's call, something doesn't add up." Sarah tapped the map. 3 EMP devices to cripple the power grid, then a raid on the CDC for plutonium. But why? Why go through all that effort for a dirty bomb when they could just detonate conventional explosives during the summit and kill world leaders directly? Maybe the plutonium is for later attacks? Maybe. Or maybe the EMP devices and the CDC raid are misdirection. Sarah pulled up photos on her laptop, surveillance images of the Congress Center's interior. What if the real attack is something we haven't anticipated, something already inside the building? Marcus leaned closer, studying the images. "You think there's a bomb in the Congress Center?" "I think there's something. The Syndicate has had months to prepare. They could have infiltrated the construction crews, the cleaning staff, the security personnel. They could have planted anything. And then we need to alert the Secret Service, FBI, Homeland Security." Sarah shook her head. "The ghost mentioned a mole in MI6. What if there are moles in other agencies? What if warning them tips off the Syndicate and they accelerate the timeline?" "So what do? We go in ourselves. Max can detect explosives better than any electronic sensor. We sweep the building, find whatever they've planted, and disable it. Then we use that evidence to convince the authorities the threat is real." Marcus looked uncertain. "That's a huge building, thousands of potential hiding places. Even with Max, it could take days to sweep properly." "We don't have days. We have now." Sarah began gathering equipment, bolt cutters, lockpicks, a portable explosive detection kit. "The summit opens tomorrow night. Today's the last day before full security lockdown. If we're going to search, it has to be within the next few hours. Security will be tight even now." Sarah smiled grimly. "That's why we're going in as security." 20 minutes later, they sat in a van, 2 blocks from the Congress Center. Sarah had acquired security uniforms through a contact from her police days, a supervisor who owed her favors and didn't ask questions. The uniforms were legitimate, the credentials convincing forgeries. "Remember," Sarah said, adjusting her security badge, "we're advanced sweep team, doing final checks before tomorrow's lockdown. Max is certified explosive detection. We act bored, professional, like we've done this 1,000 times." Marcus pulled on his uniform jacket. "And if we find something, we photograph it, document the location, and extract. Then we make the calls." Sarah clipped Max's working dog vest in place. "Ready, partner?" Max barked softly. always ready. They approached the Congress Center's service entrance, where a bored security guard checked their credentials with minimal interest. The forged documents passed inspection, and they were waved through into the building's vast interior. The Congress Center was a maze of convention halls, meeting rooms, and service corridors. Sarah had studied the blueprints, but navigating the actual space was different, more confusing, more claustrophobic despite the enormous rooms. "We start with the main ballroom," Sarah said quietly. "That's where the opening gala happens. If they're planning something dramatic, it'll be there." They moved through the building with purpose, Max's nose working constantly. Other security personnel nodded as they passed, accepting their presence without question. Sarah marveled at how easy infiltration could be with the right credentials and attitude. The main ballroom was breathtaking, a massive space with soaring ceilings, elegant chandeliers, and a stage capable of hosting orchestras. Tables were already set up for tomorrow's gala, crystal glasses gleaming, white tablecloths crisp and perfect. Sarah released Max with a subtle hand signal. Her partner began methodical sweeps of the room, checking under tables, around pillars, near air vents. His training was impeccable, his focus absolute. Marcus kept watch near the entrance while Sarah examined the room's infrastructure, electrical panels, HVAC systems, support structures, any place large enough to hide significant explosives. 10 minutes passed, then 20. Max showed no alerts. "Maybe we're wrong," Marcus whispered. "Maybe the EMPs and CDC raid are the entire plan." Sarah was about to respond when Max suddenly stopped near the stage, his body going rigid, his ears pinned back, and he sat, the signal for explosive detection. Sarah's heart rate spiked. She moved to Max's position, pulling out her portable detection kit. The readings were immediate and terrifying. Chemical signatures consistent with C4 plastic explosive, lots of it. "Marcus, we have a hit. Stage area, under the platform." Marcus joined her, and together they carefully pried up a section of the stage's skirting. Behind the decorative fabric, hidden in the support structure, was a package roughly the size of a duffel bag. Through the canvas covering, Sarah could see wiring, circuit boards, and blocks of grey explosive material. "Jesus," Marcus breathed. "That's enough to bring down the entire ballroom." Sarah photographed everything from multiple angles, her hands steady despite the adrenaline flooding her system. Timer or remote detonation? Marcus examined the visible electronics without touching anything. "Both, looks like. Redundant systems, very professional. Can you disable it?" "Not without the right tools. This is advanced work. Military-grade components." Sarah's mind raced through options. They couldn't leave it here, but moving it would be suicide if it had motion sensors. They needed bomb disposal specialists, but calling them in would alert the Syndicate. "We need to—" The ballroom lights suddenly went out. Emergency lighting kicked in after 2 seconds, bathing everything in dim red. Sarah's hand went to her holstered Walther as Max growled low and threatening. "That's not a coincidence," Marcus whispered. Sarah's tactical instincts screamed warnings. They'd been made. Somehow, despite all precautions, someone knew they were here. "Exit, now." They moved quickly but quietly toward the ballroom entrance. Behind them, Sarah heard footsteps, multiple people, moving with tactical precision. They burst into the corridor, and Sarah saw them immediately. 4 operatives in black tactical gear, weapons raised. Not building security, Syndicate. Sarah and Marcus ran. Max bounded ahead as bullets sparked against walls behind them. The Congress Center's maze-like interior suddenly became an advantage. They turned corners at random, using their police training to navigate while under fire. "Service stairs!" Sarah shouted, seeing a doorway marked "Employees Only." They crashed through, taking stairs 2 at a time. Behind them, the operatives followed, their communications radio chatter echoing in the stairwell. Sarah's mind calculated as they ran. 4 operatives meant more were probably covering other exits. The Ghost had anticipated this move, positioned assets to respond. He'd been waiting for them to discover the bomb. They reached the basement level, bursting into a service corridor lined with pipes and electrical conduits. Sarah spotted an emergency exit ahead, daylight visible through the small window. "There, go!" Marcus hit the door first, alarm shrieking as they emerged into an alley. A van was waiting, black, windows tinted, engine running. "Trap!" Sarah yelled, reversing direction. But the van doors opened, and more operatives emerged. They were surrounded, 4 behind, 4 ahead, and nowhere to run. Max snarled, his body coiled to attack. Marcus raised his hands slowly. Sarah kept her weapon holstered but ready, calculating odds that looked increasingly lethal. Then the lead operative from the van stepped forward and removed his mask. Sarah's world stopped. It was a face she'd seen in countless intelligence briefs, a face that supposedly belonged to a ghost. But here, in this Atlanta alley, that ghost had become flesh and blood. The man was perhaps 40, with sharp features, cold eyes, and a scar that ran from his left ear to his jaw. He wore tactical gear with the casual confidence of someone who'd spent decades in combat zones. "Agent Collins," he said, his voice no longer mechanically distorted. "I'm Victor Cross, and I believe you've found my bomb." Sarah's hand moved toward her weapon, but Cross raised one finger in warning. 8 weapons currently aimed at you, your partner, and that magnificent dog. Please don't be foolish. "You're the ghost," Sarah said, "and the leader of the Syndicate. Both, neither. Labels are so limiting." Cross smiled without warmth. "But yes, I've worn many masks, played many roles. The ghost was just one persona among dozens." Marcus stepped forward, his face ashen. "Victor, you said you were military intelligence. You said you were helping me become something better. I did help you, Marcus. I turned you from a street rat into a capable operative. That I was using you the entire time doesn't diminish your growth. You said you'd kill Sarah if I didn't cooperate. I lied. I needed your loyalty, your guilt, your fear. And it worked beautifully. You led Agent Collins on a merry chase, gave her just enough information to feel clever, all while I tracked every move through your compromised phone." Sarah's voice was ice. "This whole thing, Marcus contacting me, the intelligence about the EMPs and CDC, it was all theater? Not all of it. The EMP devices are real. The CDC raid is planned. The bomb in the ballroom is very real. But your interference was always part of the design." Cross moved closer, and Sarah noticed his operatives tensing, ready to fire if she made any aggressive move. "I needed someone to discover the bomb, someone credible, someone whose warning would be believed." "Why?" "Because when you call in the bomb threat, authorities will evacuate the Congress Center. The summit will be postponed, moved to a secure secondary location. A location my organization has already compromised. A location where we can eliminate every world leader in one coordinated strike." The elegance of it hit Sarah like a hammer. The bomb wasn't meant to kill, it was meant to be found, to drive the summit into a trap already prepared. "And if I don't report it?" Cross smiled. "Then it detonates tomorrow during the gala, killing everyone inside. Either way, the Syndicate wins. The only variable is how many people die." Sarah's mind raced through scenarios looking for the angle, the weakness, the way out. "You could have had Marcus report it. Why show yourself? Why reveal the plan?" "Because I respect you, Agent Collins. In another life, you might have made an excellent Syndicate operative. And because I want you to understand, to truly understand, that some battles can't be won. Some enemies are too far ahead, too well prepared. Knowing when to surrender is the mark of intelligence. I don't surrender. Then you'll die, along with Max, along with Marcus. And tomorrow, when the bomb detonates or the secondary strike succeeds, you'll have accomplished nothing except adding 3 more bodies to the casualty count." Max growled, sensing Sarah's anger and frustration. Marcus looked between them, his face a mask of conflicting emotions, guilt, anger, desperation. Cross checked his watch. "I'm giving you 30 seconds to decide. Report the bomb and live or die right now in this alley. Either way, the Syndicate's plan proceeds." Sarah met his cold eyes, seeing the absolute certainty there. He believed he'd won, believed she had no options. But Sarah hadn't survived 7 years as a police officer and 3 years as an MI6 agent by accepting defeat. "I choose option 3, she said calmly. Cross raised an eyebrow. "There is no option 3. "There is, because you made one critical mistake in your brilliant plan." "Which is?" Sarah smiled. "You told me exactly where you'll be tomorrow, the secondary location, and you assumed I'd be too dead or too demoralized to do anything about it." For just a moment, uncertainty flickered across Cross's face. Then it was gone, replaced by cold calculation. "Kill them," he ordered. Sarah moved in that instant before his operatives could react. She didn't draw her weapon. Instead, she dropped a smoke grenade that had been palmed in her left hand since entering the alley. Thick, grey smoke exploded outward as Sarah grabbed Marcus and ran. Bullets sparked against brick and pavement as Max darted through the chaos with impossible agility. They crashed through a door Sarah had spotted during her initial scan, another service entrance, and found themselves in the basement of an adjacent building. Behind them, Cross's voice shouted orders, organizing pursuit. "This way!" Sarah led them through the basement maze, using her knowledge of Atlanta's interconnected downtown buildings. They emerged 3 blocks away, blending into pedestrian traffic, just 3 more people in a city of millions. They didn't stop running for 10 minutes. When they finally paused in an abandoned parking structure, Marcus bent over, gasping. "That was insane. We should be dead." "We're not dead. We're informed. We know the real plan now." Sarah pulled out her phone. "And we're going to stop it." "How?" "He has the entire syndicate behind him. We're 3 people against an army." Sarah scratched Max's ears, her partner looking up at her with absolute trust. "Then we better make sure we're fighting smarter than they are." She dialed a number from memory. When it connected, M's voice answered immediately. "Agent Collins, your communication protocols have been compromised. This line—" "I know, sir. I'm calling on a clean phone, and I need you to listen very carefully because I'm only going to say this once." For the next 5 minutes, Sarah explained everything. Marcus, the ghost, the bomb, the secondary location trap. She detailed the syndicate's plan with precision, holding nothing back. When she finished, M was silent for a long moment. Then, "This is beyond anything we anticipated. I'm pulling you out, sending in a full tactical team." "No, sir. The syndicate will see them coming. They'll adapt. We need to hit them when they're committed, when they can't change the plan." "Agent Collins, sir, I can stop this. But I need you to trust me. Trust that James Bond chose the right person to carry his number." Another silence. Then M's voice, grave and resolute. "What do you need?" Sarah smiled. "Everything. 18 hours until the summit gala." Sarah Collins stood in an MI6 mobile command center parked in an abandoned warehouse on Atlanta's west side, studying 3 massive screens displaying real-time intelligence. M had delivered on his promise. Everything she needed had arrived within 6 hours. Tactical equipment, surveillance drones, a 6-person support team from MI6's Special Operations Division, and complete authorization to operate with lethal force. But Sarah knew numbers didn't guarantee victory. The syndicate had proven they were always 3 steps ahead, always anticipating moves before they were made. This operation required precision, deception, and a willingness to sacrifice everything for the mission's success. Marcus sat at a workstation, his fingers flying across a keyboard as he accessed syndicate communication networks using credentials he'd memorized during his time undercover. Max rested near Sarah's feet, alert despite the late hour, his tactical vest monitoring the warehouse perimeter through integrated sensors. "Talk to me, Marcus," Sarah said. "What's the secondary location?" Marcus pulled up architectural blueprints on his screen. "The Fernbank Museum of Natural History. It's been closed for renovations for 3 months. Perfect cover for the syndicate to prepare. According to the internal communications I'm intercepting, they've modified the building's security systems, planted weapons caches, and established multiple escape routes." Sarah studied the museum's layout. "When's the summit being relocated there?" "Tomorrow afternoon, after you report the Congress Center bomb." The Secret Service will sweep the museum. They think they're being clever, choosing an unexpected location. But the Syndicate's already inside the security contractor firm hired to do the sweep. How many world leaders attending? 32 confirmed. Presidents, prime ministers, chancellors. If the Syndicate succeeds... Marcus's voice trailed off. The implications were too massive to articulate. Sarah's jaw tightened. They won't succeed. We're going to hit them before the summit relocates, tonight, while they're still in preparation mode. One of the MI6 operators, a woman named Agent Davies, looked up from her station. "Ma'am, intelligence suggests at least 40 Syndicate operatives stationed at the museum. We're 6 operators plus you and Marcus. Those are suicide odds. Not if we fight smart." Sarah moved to a tactical map of the museum grounds. "The Syndicate's expecting us to wait until the summit begins, to try stopping the attack during the actual event. They're not expecting us to assault their staging ground while they're still preparing." Marcus enlarged sections of the museum blueprint. "The main threat is here, the planetarium. According to intercepted communications, that's where Cross plans to gather all the world leaders for what they think will be a secure briefing. The entire room is rigged with explosives. Once everyone's inside, the Syndicate seals the exits and detonates. Access points? 4 entrances to the museum. 2 loading docks, main entrance and emergency exit on the north side. All monitored, all defended." Sarah traced potential approach vectors with her finger. "Then we don't use the entrances. Marcus, you said renovations have been ongoing. 3 months. Electrical work. Structural reinforcement, new exhibits, which means scaffolding, construction access, temporary barriers, places where security might be weaker because they're considered temporary." Sarah looked at Agent Davies. "I need thermal satellite imaging of the museum. Every heat signature, every blind spot in their perimeter." Davies's fingers danced across her keyboard. "Pulling NSA satellite data now. This is highly classified. Everything we're doing is highly classified. And if we fail, classification won't matter because half the world's governments will be decapitated." The thermal images appeared on screen, showing the museum as a 3-dimensional heat map. Red signatures indicated personnel, clusters of them throughout the building. But Sarah noticed something interesting. The roof access showed minimal coverage. "There," she said, pointing, "rooftop entry through the skylight system." The renovations included new climate control, which means the old skylight seals are probably compromised. We fast-roped from a helicopter, breached through the roof, and hit them from above, while they're expecting ground-level assault. Agent Thompson, the team's explosive specialist, shook his head. "Helicopter insertion over downtown Atlanta? That's a lot of civilian attention. We don't use military helicopters. We use a civilian medical transport. I still have contacts from my police days, paramedics who owe me favors. We paint this as a training exercise, file the flight plan through proper channels, and nobody looks twice at a medical helicopter over the city." Marcus pulled up the museum's internal structure. "If we breach through the skylight, we drop into the main exhibition hall. From there, it's 3 corridors to the planetarium, where Cross will be coordinating operations. But we'll be outnumbered the moment we enter. Not if we create chaos first." Sarah smiled grimly. "The Syndicate thinks they're secure, thinks they have time to prepare. We hit them fast, hit them hard, and make them believe they're under assault from multiple directions. Flashbangs, smoke grenades, suppressive fire. We make 6 operators feel like 60. Davies looked skeptical. "And the explosives in the planetarium. If we trigger a defensive response, Cross might detonate early. That's why Marcus and I go directly for the planetarium, while the rest of you create the distraction. We disable the explosives, neutralize Cross, and end this before the summit ever relocates." "You're putting a lot of faith in a 2-person team penetrating that deep into hostile territory," Thompson observed. Sarah looked down at Max. 3-person team, and my partner has never let me down." 6 hours later, Sarah stood on the roof of an office building 2 miles from the Fernbank Museum, checking her gear with methodical precision. She wore full tactical armor, matte black, with integrated communications and a helmet equipped with night vision and thermal imaging. Her weapons loadout included her Walther PPK, a suppressed MP5 submachine gun, flashbang grenades, and a compact breaching charge. Max wore his advanced tactical vest, upgraded with additional armor plating and communications equipment that would let Sarah see through his camera feed during the operation. The dog seemed to sense the gravity of the mission, his demeanor shifting from companion to warrior. Marcus stood beside her, similarly equipped. He'd been quiet during the preparation phase, and Sarah recognized the signs of someone confronting their past and uncertain future. "You don't have to do this," Sarah said quietly. "You've given us intelligence, access, everything we needed. You can walk away now." Marcus checked his weapons magazine, not meeting her eyes. "If I walk away, I'm still the kid you saved, still defined by what others did for me. But if I do this, if I help stop Cross, maybe I become someone who earned his second chance. You've already earned it. Then this is me keeping it." Marcus finally looked at her, and Sarah saw determination where fear used to live. "Besides, somebody needs to watch your back. You have a tendency to run toward danger without looking where you're going." Sarah smiled. "Fair point." The medical helicopter landed on the rooftop, its rotors creating hurricane winds that whipped Sarah's tactical gear. The pilot, a former Army aviator named Rodriguez, who Sarah had worked with during multi-agency operations, gave her a thumbs up through the cockpit window. "Teams Alpha and Bravo are in position," Davies reported through Sarah's earpiece. "Perimeter secured. Ready to initiate distraction protocol on your mark." "Copy that." Sarah turned to Marcus. "Last chance to back out. Already said no once. Don't insult me by asking again." They boarded the helicopter with Max, strapping into jump seats as the aircraft lifted off. The flight to the museum took 7 minutes, Rodriguez keeping the helicopter at standard civilian altitude and speed to avoid drawing attention. Below them, Atlanta glowed with evening lights, oblivious to the battle about to unfold. 2 minutes to drop zone, Rodriguez announced. "Weather's cooperating, light winds, good visibility, but once you're out, I'm gone. Can't risk loitering without raising questions." "Understood. 1 pass, fast rope deployment, then RTB." Sarah moved to the helicopter's open side door, connecting her fast rope harness. Marcus did the same while Max waited patiently. He'd been trained for aerial insertions during his MI6 preparation. The Fernbank Museum appeared below them, its distinctive architecture recognizable even in darkness. Sarah activated her helmet's thermal imaging, seeing the heat signatures of Syndicate operatives throughout the building. 40-plus hostiles, just as intelligence suggested. 30 seconds! Sarah clipped onto the rope, Marcus beside her. Max secured in a tactical descent harness attached to Sarah's gear. This was the vulnerable moment, suspended in air, visible to anyone looking up, completely exposed. 10 seconds! Go on green light! The helicopter hovered over the museum's skylight section. Sarah saw the green light flash and pushed off, sliding down the rope with controlled speed. The rooftop rushed up, and she landed in a combat crouch, weapon up, scanning for threats. Marcus landed beside her, quickly unhooking from the rope. The helicopter was already climbing away, disappearing into Atlanta's night sky as if it had never existed. "Davies, we're on station," Sarah whispered into her radio. "Initiate distraction in 60 seconds. Copy. 60 seconds to party time." Sarah and Marcus moved to the skylight, Max padding silently between them. Through the reinforced glass, Sarah could see the exhibition hall below, dimly lit, filled with dinosaur skeletons and artifact displays that seemed surreal given the circumstances. She placed a shaped breaching charge on the skylight's frame, activating the timer. 30 seconds. Night vision on. They activated their helmet's night vision systems, the world shifting to green-tinted clarity. Sarah pulled Max close, protecting him from the coming blast. The breaching charge detonated with a sharp crack, the skylight frame buckling. Sarah kicked through the weakened glass and dropped 15 feet into the exhibition hall below, rolling to absorb impact. Marcus followed, landing beside a massive T-Rex skeleton that cast grotesque shadows in the darkness. "Teams Alpha and Bravo, execute," Sarah commanded. Outside the museum, explosions erupted. MI6 operators detonated flashbangs and smoke grenades at all 4 museum entrances, creating the illusion of a major assault. Radio chatter erupted across Syndicate communications frequencies as operatives scrambled to respond to multiple perceived threats. "Move!" Sarah hissed. They ran through the exhibition hall, using display cases and dinosaur skeletons for cover. Behind them, Sarah heard shouts and footsteps, Syndicate operatives responding to the breach, but most were rushing toward the perimeter, thinking the real attack was coming from outside. Marcus led them through corridors he'd memorized from blueprints, his knowledge of the museum's layout proving invaluable. They passed through the geology wing, the ecology exhibits, moving deeper into the building's interior. Max suddenly froze, his ears pinning back. "Warning!" Sarah held up a fist. "Stop signal!" She heard voices ahead, coming from around the corner, at least 3 operatives moving toward the commotion at the perimeter. She signaled Marcus. "Ambush positions." They pressed against the walls on opposite sides of the corridor. Sarah counted down with her fingers. 3, 2, 1. The Syndicate operatives rounded the corner, and Sarah struck with surgical precision. A suppressed double tap to the first operative's center mass. Marcus took the second with his own suppressed fire. The third operative managed to raise his weapon before Max launched himself at the man's gun arm, 60 pounds of trained aggression taking him to the ground. Sarah was there in 2 steps, delivering a knockout blow. Silence returned to the corridor. Contacts neutralized, moving to objective. They dragged the bodies into a dark alcove and continued. The planetarium was close now. Sarah could see the distinctive domed entrance ahead. But as they approached, she realized something was wrong. The planetarium doors stood open. Inside, lights blazed where darkness should have been, and in the center of the room, standing calmly beneath the projection dome, was Victor Cross. He was alone, waiting. "Agent Collins," his voice carried across the empty space. "Right on time. I've been expecting you." Sarah's every instinct screamed trap, but they'd come too far to turn back. She entered the planetarium, weapon raised, Max and Marcus flanking her. The room was larger than she'd anticipated, with stadium-style seating arranged in concentric circles around a central projection pit. And everywhere, absolutely everywhere, she saw explosives. Charges were attached to support columns, wired into the seating, packed around the projection equipment. Enough C4 to vaporize the entire building. "Admiring my work?" Cross asked casually. "Took 3 weeks to install properly. Every charge synchronized, every circuit redundant. Even if you could disarm one, 50 more would detonate." "Where are your operatives?" Sarah demanded. "Responding to your distraction, exactly as you planned. You're really quite good at this, Agent Collins. Tactical thinking, creative problem-solving, inspirational leadership. In another life, you would have made an excellent Syndicate commander. I'd rather die. That can be arranged." Cross pulled out a small device, a dead man's switch. "1 button. That's all it takes. I release pressure, and we all become vapor. Poetic in a way. The legendary 007, killed by the same tactic she used so brilliantly in Istanbul 3 months ago." Sarah's mind raced through scenarios, calculating odds. 20 feet between her and Cross. Too far to close before he could release the trigger. Shooting him would cause his hand to relax, detonating everything. Max could reach him faster, but not fast enough. "Why reveal yourself?" Sarah asked, playing for time. "Why not just detonate remotely?" "Because I wanted to see your face when you realized you'd lost. When you understood that every clever tactic, every brave sacrifice, every heroic effort was meaningless." Cross smiled. "The bomb at the Congress Center will be discovered in 4 hours, when a Syndicate operative posing as security finds it during routine patrol. The summit will relocate here as planned, and tomorrow afternoon, when all those world leaders gather in this room for their secure briefing, I'll press this button from 500 miles away and reshape global politics in an instant. You'll kill yourself. No, I'll be gone long before then. This switch is just for today. Insurance against interference. Tomorrow's detonation uses a completely different trigger system, one you'll never find in time. Marcus stepped forward. Victor, listen to yourself. You're talking about murdering thousands of innocent people, people who never hurt you, never threatened you. Where does it end? It ends when the current world order collapses and something better rises from the ashes. These leaders you're so desperate to protect, they're cowards and bureaucrats who've let the world rot while they play political games. The Syndicate will establish something different, something honest in its brutality. And that's insanity, Sarah said. That's vision. Cross's finger tensed on the switch. Now you have a choice. Back away slowly, leave this building and live to fail another day, or force my hand and die here with me. Sarah looked at Max, at Marcus, at the tons of explosives surrounding them. Every tactical calculation showed the same result. No win scenario, no angle of attack, no miracle solution, no clever trick that would save them, unless she was willing to sacrifice everything. Marcus, Sarah said quietly, take Max and go. Sarah, no. That's an order. Get him out. Get yourself out. Call Davies. Tell her to storm the building. Maybe they can disable the bombs after Cross and I are dead. Marcus's face went white. You can't. I can. I'm Euro 7. This is what we do. Sarah never took her eyes off Cross. We make the hard calls. We pay the price. We save the world even when it costs us everything. How noble, Cross sneered. But ultimately, pointless. Even if you attack me, even if we both die, the backup plan proceeds. The bomb at the Congress Center detonates on schedule. The summit relocates here. Tomorrow, everything burns anyway. Sarah smiled. Not if there's no bomb to find. Cross's expression flickered, the first sign of uncertainty. What? You assumed I'd report the bomb after escaping your ambush. But I didn't. I called MI6's bomb disposal team instead. They entered the Congress Center 2 hours ago using diplomatic credentials. By now, they've disarmed your device and replaced it with a harmless dummy. The Secret Service will find it during their sweep, but when they try to analyze it, they'll discover it's inert. No evacuation, no relocation, no gathering of world leaders in your death trap. Cross's face went through several expressions. Disbelief, anger, then cold calculation. You're bluffing. Am I? Check your communications. See if anyone from the Congress Center team is responding. Cross pulled out a phone with his free hand, never letting his grip on the dead man's switch waver. He scrolled through messages, his expression darkening with each passing second. They're not responding, he said slowly, because you've killed them. Because they were arrested by FBI tactical teams waiting inside the Congress Center. We've been rolling up your network all evening while you've been focused on this museum. By morning, the Syndicate will be dismantled. You've lost, Cross. The only question now is whether you take us with you. For a long moment, silence filled the planetarium. Then Cross began laughing, a sound devoid of humor, filled with bitter recognition. Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. You let me think I was ahead, let me commit resources, let me reveal the entire operation. And all the while, you were the one setting the trap. His laughter faded. I underestimated you, Agent Collins. I won't make that mistake again. There won't be an again. Cross's eyes hardened. Perhaps not. But if I'm going down, I'm taking Atlanta's downtown with me. These explosives are real. This trigger is real. And in 3 seconds, I'm going to... Max moved. Sarah never gave the command. Her partner simply acted, reading the micro-expressions in Cross's face that preceded violence, responding with the split-second timing that made him legendary among MI6 K9 units. The dog launched himself across the 20-foot gap faster than Cross could process. 60 pounds of muscle and training hit the Syndicate leader center mass, knocking him backward. The dead man's switch flew from his hand, skittering across the floor. Sarah was moving before it landed, diving desperately for the trigger. Her fingers closed around it just as it was about to hit the ground and release. She squeezed the button, maintaining pressure, her heart hammering in her chest. Marcus was on cross in a heartbeat, weapon pressed to the man's head. "Don't move, don't breathe, don't give me a reason." Max stood on Cross's chest, teeth bared, a low growl rumbling from deep in his throat. Sarah slowly, carefully, examined the dead man's switch in her hand. It was elegant in its simplicity, a thumb trigger connected to a wireless detonator. As long as she maintained pressure, the explosives remained stable. But her arm was already starting to shake from adrenaline and exertion. "Davies," she said into her radio, "planetarium is secure. Suspect in custody. But we have a problem. I'm holding a dead man's switch. I need bomb disposal here immediately." "Copy. ETA 3 minutes. Can you hold until then?" Sarah's arm trembled. "I don't have a choice." Those 3 minutes felt like 3 hours. Sarah stood motionless, every muscle locked, maintaining perfect pressure on the trigger, while sweat rolled down her face. Marcus kept cross-pinned, and Max maintained his position, adding physical and psychological weight to the subdued terrorist. When the bomb disposal team finally arrived, led by Agent Thompson, Sarah had never been more relieved to see another human being. "Talk to me," Thompson said, approaching carefully. "What do we have?" "Dead man's switch. Wireless detonator. Unknown range, but probably covers the entire building. If I release pressure for more than a second, we all die." Thompson examined the device without touching it. "I can disarm it, but I need you to hold steady for about 90 seconds. Can you do that?" "Do I have a choice?" "Not really." Thompson went to work with tools Sarah didn't recognize, his hands steady despite the circumstances. She watched his face, reading his expression for any sign of trouble. 60 seconds, 45, 30. "Almost there," Thompson muttered. "Just need to bypass the pressure sensor and install a bridge circuit so we can remove your finger without triggering. 15 seconds, 10. Got it. Okay, Sarah, on my count, you're going to slowly release pressure. I've got a mechanical lock engaging, but we need to time this perfectly. Ready? 3, 2, 1, release." Sarah let go of the trigger. Nothing exploded. Thompson smiled. "Welcome to alive. I'll disable the rest of the charges, but the immediate crisis is over." Sarah's legs nearly gave out from relief. Marcus pulled Cross to his feet, securing his hands with zip ties. Max returned to Sarah's side, and she dropped to one knee to embrace her partner. "Good boy," she whispered. "Best partner I've ever had." Max's tail wagged. Once, twice. Mission accomplished. Davies and the rest of the MI6 team entered the planetarium, securing the scene with professional efficiency. Cross said nothing as they led him away, but Sarah saw something in his eyes, not defeat but calculation, like he was already planning 3 moves ahead. "Sarah," Marcus's voice was quiet. "It's not over, is it? You lied about the Congress Center bomb, about rolling up the Syndicate network." Sarah stood, watching Cross disappear into MI6 custody. "Partially lied. We disarmed the Congress Center bomb. That part was true. But the Syndicate's bigger than we thought. This was one cell, one operation. There are others. So what do we do?" Sarah checked her watch. 12 hours until the summit gala. 12 hours to ensure no backup plans, no secondary attacks, no final desperate measures from a cornered terrorist organization. "We finish this," she said, "once and for all." The holding cell beneath MI6's Atlanta field office was designed to contain the world's most dangerous criminals. Reinforced walls, electronic surveillance, armed guards at every access point. Yet Victor Cross sat calmly on the metal bench, looking more like a corporate executive waiting for a meeting than a terrorist facing life imprisonment. Sarah stood outside the cell, studying him through the reinforced glass. 8 hours until the Global Leadership Summit Gala. 8 hours to extract every piece of intelligence about remaining Syndicate operations before world leaders gathered in one place. "He hasn't said a word since capture," Agent Davies reported, standing beside Sarah. "Won't confirm his identity, won't discuss operations, won't even request legal representation. He just sits there, smiling. Because he knows something we don't," Sarah said quietly. "Something that makes him confident he's already won." Marcus approached from the interrogation wing, exhaustion evident in his face. "I've been going through every communication, every file we recovered from the museum. The Syndicate's network is vast. Cells in 40 countries, assets in intelligence agencies, military contractors, private corporations. Even with Cross captured, the organization continues. What about the summit? Any indication of backup plans? Nothing concrete, but there's a pattern in the communications, references to final protocol and primary assets still in play. Someone or something is still active, still targeting the summit. Sarah's tactical instincts screamed warnings. They dismantled one attack, captured the apparent leader, but the Syndicate was designed to survive decapitation. Somewhere in Atlanta, another threat was moving into position. "I need to talk to him," Sarah said, gesturing toward Cross's cell. Davies shook her head. "M's orders are clear. No direct contact until our interrogation specialists arrive from London. That's still 4 hours away." "We don't have 4 hours. If there's a backup plan in motion, we need intelligence now." Sarah, he's a manipulator. That's what he does. Going in there alone, you're giving him exactly what he wants, a chance to get inside your head. Then he'll find out my head is a dangerous place to be. Sarah entered the cell before Davies could object further. Max followed, his presence both comfort and security. The door sealed behind them with an electronic hiss, leaving Sarah alone with one of the most dangerous men alive. Cross looked up, his smile widening. "Agent Collins, I was hoping you'd come, and you brought our mutual friend. Max was quite impressive during our last encounter, nearly broke 3 of my ribs." Sarah remained standing, maintaining tactical positioning near the door. "Tell me about the backup plan." "Straight to business. I admire that. No small talk, no psychological games. Just the mission." Cross leaned back against the wall. "You're exactly like James Bond described you. Single-minded, incorruptible, dangerously competent. He told me about you, before his retirement." Sarah's expression didn't change, but internally alarm bells rang. "You knew Bond?" "We worked together, briefly. Years ago on an operation in Prague. He was still 07 then, still the legend, and I was just a MI6 field operative trying to make my mark." Cross's eyes held something dark. "He taught me valuable lessons about loyalty, honor, sacrifice, and then I watched the world betray him over and over. Bureaucrats second-guessing his decisions, politicians using him as a pawn. He gave everything to protect a system that didn't deserve protecting. So you decided to destroy that system. I decided to replace it. The Syndicate isn't about chaos, Agent Collins. It's about order, real order, enforced by people strong enough to make hard decisions without committees and oversight and cowardice disguised as democracy. By murdering world leaders. By removing obstacles to progress. Those 32 people gathering tonight represent governments that have failed their citizens, perpetuated inequality, allowed corruption to flourish. Their deaths will create a vacuum that the Syndicate can fill with something better." Sarah studied his face, reading micro-expressions. He believed every word. This wasn't performative villainy. This was genuine conviction wrapped in murderous ideology. "You're insane," Sarah said flatly. "I'm visionary. History will prove which of us was right." Cross tilted his head. "But you didn't come here for philosophy. You came because you're terrified that despite capturing me, despite disarming my bombs, there's still a threat you haven't identified. And you're correct. Tell me, why would I do that? Because you're already beaten. Because the Syndicate is being dismantled as we speak. Because whatever satisfaction you get from one final attack won't change your future. Life imprisonment in a black site nobody knows exists." Cross laughed. "You think I care about my own survival? I've known for years this would end in death or capture. The Syndicate was always bigger than one person. Removing me changes nothing except who sits in the command chair. Then why reveal yourself at the museum? Why take that risk? To distract you, to make you believe you'd won, to ensure the real attack proceeded without interference." Cross stood, moving to the reinforced glass that separated cell from corridor. "I was never the primary asset, Agent Collins. I was the decoy, and you fell for it perfectly." Ice formed in Sarah's chest. Who's the primary asset? Someone already inside the summit security. Someone with complete access, intimate knowledge of protection protocols, and no reason to be suspected. Someone who will walk into the Georgia World Congress Center tonight with a weapon you can't detect and execute every world leader before your tactical teams can respond. Give me a name. Why? So you can stop them? So you can save the day and prove Bond made the right choice, selecting you as his successor? No, Agent Collins. You're going to fail tonight. And when you do, you'll understand what I learned years ago. The system isn't worth saving. Sarah's hand moved toward her sidearm before training reasserted control. Shooting a prisoner, regardless of provocation, violated every principle she believed in. But the temptation was real, visceral, burning. You're pathetic, Sarah said quietly. You dress up cowardice as philosophy, murder as vision, but ultimately, you're just another broken man who chose cruelty over courage. She turned toward the door, but Cross's voice stopped her. Marcus Reed is the primary asset. Sarah froze. Max growled low in his throat, sensing her sudden tension. That's right, Cross continued, his voice carrying satisfaction. The boy you saved, the young man you trusted, the operative who's been helping you for the past 72 hours. He's been mine since the beginning. Every piece of intelligence he gave you, every plan you made together. I knew because he reported everything. And tonight, when the summit begins, he'll complete his mission. He'll kill those leaders, and he'll do it because I trained him better than you ever could have. Sarah's mind raced through every interaction with Marcus, every conversation, every moment of apparent sincerity, looking for the cracks, the inconsistencies, the signs she'd missed. You're lying, she said, trying to divide my team, create doubt. Am I? Think about it. How did I know your plans at the museum? How did I know you'd come personally, instead of sending a tactical team? Because Marcus told me. He's been my deepest cover operative since the day you saved him 7 years ago. That entire encounter was staged. A homeless teenager, planted specifically to gain your sympathy, to create a connection I could exploit later. The implications crashed through Sarah like an avalanche. If true, it meant 7 years of manipulation, of careful cultivation, of turning her compassion into a weapon against her. I don't believe you. You don't want to believe me. There's a difference. Cross returned to his bench, satisfaction evident. But in about 4 hours, when Marcus completes his mission, you'll know I was telling the truth, and that knowledge will destroy you more completely than any bomb could. Sarah left the cell without another word, her mind spinning. In the corridor outside, Davies waited with Agent Thompson and 3 armed guards. What did he say? Davies asked. Nothing useful. He's playing games. Sarah forced her voice to remain steady despite the turmoil inside. Where's Marcus now? Last I checked, he was in the operations center analyzing recovered data. Why? Just checking team positions. How long until the summit begins? First guests arrive in 7 hours. Full security lockdown begins in 6. Sarah nodded, her tactical mind already working through scenarios. If Cross was lying, and he almost certainly was, then acknowledging his accusations would create division and suspicion at the exact moment unity was critical. But if there was even a fraction of truth in his claims, she needed to think, needed space to process information without pressure or observation. I'm going topside, Sarah told Davies. Run through security protocols one more time. Keep Cross under maximum surveillance. Copy that. Sarah took the elevator to the field office's roof access, Max following silently. The Atlanta skyline stretched in all directions, afternoon sun painting everything in gold and shadow. Somewhere in that vast urban landscape, the final pieces of the Syndicate's plan were moving into position. Her phone buzzed. M's encrypted line. Agent Collins, I've reviewed your after-action report from the museum. Exceptional work. However, we have a complication. Sir? Victor Cross's identity has been confirmed through biometrics. He is indeed former MI6, just as he claimed. He worked with James Bond on 3 operations between 2010 and 2012 before transferring to Special Projects Division. His file was classified above my clearance level, which suggests involvement in black operations we can't discuss on this line. Sarah's grip on the phone tightened. What happened to him? Why did he turn? Unknown. His file ends abruptly in 2013 with a notation, asset compromised, presumed KIA. No details, no explanation. Someone very powerful wanted his existence erased. Could he have been telling the truth about Bond? About working together? Possibly. Bond's operational history during those years is also heavily redacted. If they did work together, and if something went wrong, M's voice carried weight. Agent Collins, be careful. Men like Cross don't break without reason. Whatever happened to him created the monster we're facing now, and if he's telling the truth about compromised assets within our operation, I'll be careful, sir. See that you are. The summit begins in 7 hours. The Prime Minister herself will be attending. We cannot afford failure. The line disconnected. Sarah stood on the rooftop, wind whipping her hair, Max pressed against her leg. Below, Atlanta moved with oblivious rhythm, unaware that tonight might reshape global politics through blood and fire. Her phone buzzed again. Marcus. Sarah, I found something in Cross's communications. A reference to Stage 3 protocol and a meet location tonight before the summit. Coordinates are for an abandoned factory in the industrial district. This could be where the backup team is staging. When? 2 hours from now? If we hit them before they disperse, we might stop the final attack. Sarah's every instinct screamed caution. This could be legitimate intelligence, or it could be the trap Cross had been planning all along. But inaction guaranteed failure. Movement, however risky, offered a chance at success. Assemble a tactical team, Sarah said. 4 operators plus you and me, light and fast. We hit the location, gather intelligence, and extract before they know we're there. Copy. Meet at the motor pool in 30 minutes. Sarah ended the call and looked down at Max. What do you think, partner? Can we trust him? Max tilted his head, brown eyes meeting hers. The dog couldn't answer in words, but his presence was answer enough. Trust, in the end, was a choice you made, despite uncertainty. The abandoned factory squatted in Atlanta's industrial wasteland like a tombstone to manufacturing's glory days. Broken windows stared emptily at the fading daylight. Weeds pushed through cracked concrete. Rusted machinery stood as monuments to obsolescence. Sarah and her team approached from multiple angles, using the broken terrain for cover. She'd selected operators she'd worked with before, Davies, Thompson, and 2 MI6 specialists named Chen and Rodriguez. With Marcus and Max, that made 7 against unknown opposition. Thermal shows 8 signatures inside, Davies whispered through the team radio. Main factory floor, gathered around what looks like a vehicle. Weapons, can't tell from this distance, but body language suggests combat-ready postures. Sarah checked her own thermal scope, seeing the heat signatures Davies described. The vehicle at the center of the group was large, a van or truck, perfect for transporting weapons, equipment, or personnel. Marcus, you're with me and Max. We go in through the east loading dock. Davies, take Thompson and Chen through the south entrance. Rodriguez, overwatch on that water tower. Anyone runs, you stop them. Non-lethal if possible? Rodriguez asked. Preferred, but not required. These are terrorists planning mass murder. Protect yourselves first. The team moved into position with practiced efficiency. Sarah felt the familiar pre-combat focus narrowing her awareness, sharpening her senses. Beside her, Marcus checked his weapon with steady hands. Whatever doubts Cross had planted, Marcus's professionalism remained evident. Max ranged ahead, his tactical vest sensors feeding Sarah real-time data through her heads-up display. No electronic alarms, no motion sensors. Either the Syndicate felt secure in this location, or they were anticipating company. Sarah reached the loading dock entrance, a massive door hanging partially open. Through the gap, she could see the factory floor beyond, shadows pooling between defunct assembly lines and collapsed support structures. All teams, sound off. South team in position. Overwatch set. East team ready. Execute in 3, 2, 1. They moved simultaneously, breaching through multiple entrances with tactical precision. Sarah came through the loading dock, low and fast, weapon up, scanning for threats. The factory floor erupted in chaos. The 8 heat signatures weren't Syndicate operatives, they were hostages. Civilians bound and gagged, positioned around a van packed with explosives. And at the center of it all, holding a remote detonator, stood Marcus Reed. "Nobody move!" Marcus shouted, his voice cracking with stress. His weapon wasn't pointed at Sarah, it was pointed at the hostages. "Sarah, I'm sorry. God, I'm so sorry, but he has my sister. Cross has my sister, and if I don't do this, he'll kill her." Sarah's world tilted. Everything Cross had said suddenly snapped into focus with horrible clarity. Not a deep cover operative, not a willing traitor, just a desperate man facing an impossible choice. "Marcus, listen to me." "I can't!" Tears streamed down his face. "You don't understand. He showed me proof, video of her, tied up, scared. He said if I don't detonate this bomb when the summit starts, she dies. But if I do detonate it, these people die. And I don't know what to do, Sarah. I don't know what to do." Sarah's team had frozen, weapons trained on Marcus, but nobody firing. To shoot him would cause his hand to spasm, potentially detonating the explosives. To rush him risked the same result. They were paralyzed by the human shield he'd created, involuntary, unwilling, but effective nonetheless. "Marcus, you don't have a sister," Sarah said carefully, her voice calm despite her racing heart. "I reviewed your case file 7 years ago. Both parents deceased, no siblings, no extended family. Cross is lying to you. He showed me pictures, videos. She's real. She's 21, living in Athens, studying art. She's real. She's an actress, or a digitally created fabrication. Cross is a master manipulator. He's done this before, created elaborate lies to control his operatives. But I promise you, Marcus, whatever he showed you, it's not real." Marcus's hand trembled on the detonator. "How can I know that? How can I risk it? Because I'm asking you to trust me the way I trusted you. Because 7 years ago, I saw something in you worth saving. And I still see it now, even in this moment. You're not a killer, Marcus. You're not a terrorist. You're a scared kid trying to protect someone you love. But I'm telling you that someone doesn't exist." What if you're wrong? What if she's real and I do nothing and she dies because I was too weak to make the hard choice? Sarah took a step forward, lowering her weapon. Max moved with her, his body language non-aggressive but alert. "Then we find her together. After this, I'll use every resource MI6 has to locate this sister of yours. But right now, you need to put down the detonator and trust me." "Sarah, don't," Davies warned through the radio. "You're too close. If he triggers, he won't trigger, because he's better than Cross thinks he is." Sarah took another step, then another. She was 5 feet from Marcus now, close enough to see the anguish in his eyes, the war between loyalty and conscience tearing him apart. "I can't," Marcus whispered. "I'm sorry, Sarah. I can't risk her life. Even if there's a chance she's not real, I can't risk it." His finger began to move toward the trigger. Max barked, sharp, commanding. The sound shattered the moment's tension, drawing everyone's attention. The dog moved forward, not aggressively, but with purpose. He approached Marcus, sat down in front of him, and offered his paw, the trick Sarah had taught him years ago during training. Marcus stared at the dog, at the simple gesture of connection and trust, and something broke inside him. "I'm sorry," he sobbed, his weapon clattering to the floor. "I'm so sorry." Sarah caught the detonator as Marcus collapsed, Agent Thompson immediately moving to secure the device. Davies and Chen rushed to free the hostages, while Rodriguez maintained overwatch. Sarah knelt beside Marcus, his body racked with sobs. "You made the right choice, the hard choice. That's what courage looks like. I almost killed them, almost killed you. Almost gave Cross exactly what he wanted. But you didn't. You chose trust over fear. That's what matters. Thompson examined the van's explosive payload, his expression grave. This is military-grade material, enough to level several city blocks. Sarah, if this had detonated anywhere near the summit, but it didn't. Sarah helped Marcus to his feet. Because one person chose to be better than his worst moment. The hostages were freed, traumatized but alive. The explosive device was disarmed. And Marcus Reed, the young man Sarah had saved twice now, stood handcuffed but not broken, a man who'd faced darkness and chosen light. But Sarah's radio crackled with urgent transmission from MI6 headquarters. All units, we have a crisis. Victor Cross has escaped custody. Repeat, Cross has escaped. He had help from inside. Guards were found unconscious. Surveillance systems corrupted. He's gone, and we have no tracking on his location. Sarah's blood ran cold. The factory, the hostages, Marcus's crisis, all misdirection. All designed to pull resources away while Cross made his move. And the summit began in 3 hours. Davies, get these hostages to safety. Thompson, that explosive payload, can you repurpose it? Thompson looked confused. Repurpose how? The Congress Center has been swept clean, but what if we plant our own device? Use it as bait to draw Cross out when he tries to trigger his attack. That's insane. We'd be turning the summit into a genuine bomb site. We'd be creating a controlled situation where we know every variable. Cross thinks he has surprise on his side. Let's turn that against him. Marcus looked up, his face haggard but determined. I know how Cross thinks, how he plans. If you're serious about this trap, I can help position it where he'd expect a Syndicate device to be. Make it convincing enough that he won't suspect. Sarah studied him for a long moment. Trust had to mean something beyond words, had to be proved through action, through choice, through risk. Okay, she said. Marcus, you're with me. Everyone else, standard protective detail for the summit. But nobody, and I mean nobody, knows about the device except this team. If there are more moles, we don't give them anything to report. 6 hours later, Sarah stood in an observation room overlooking the Georgia World Congress Center's main ballroom. Below, world leaders mingled in formal attire, champagne glasses gleaming, conversation flowing in a dozen languages. Security was everywhere, Secret Service, MI6, Interpol, National Protection Details. Hundreds of trained professionals ensuring nothing went wrong. And beneath the stage, precisely positioned by Sarah and Marcus, sat Thompson's repurposed explosive, armed, monitored, and waiting for Cross to take the bait. This is insane! M's voice came through Sarah's earpiece. He was monitoring from London, unable to believe she'd placed an actual bomb in the summit venue. If something goes wrong, nothing will go wrong, sir. We have triple redundancy on the disarm system. Thompson can disable it with 3 different methods from 3 different locations. It's safer than the fire suppression system. That's not reassuring, Agent Collins. Max sat beside Sarah, his tactical vest monitoring dozens of security frequencies simultaneously. If Cross or any Syndicate operative approached the building, they'd know immediately. Marcus worked at a computer terminal nearby, tracking surveillance feeds and communication intercepts. He'd been cleared for active duty after a hasty psychiatric evaluation. Sarah had vouched for him personally, staking her career and reputation on his loyalty. Anything? Sarah asked. Nothing. No suspicious movements, no unauthorized access attempts, no— Wait! Marcus's fingers flew across the keyboard. I've got an electronic signature matching Syndicate encryption protocols. Someone inside the building is transmitting data. Location? Triangulating now. Signals weak, probably heavily shielded. Could be a phone, could be a specialized transmitter. Getting a fix is— Got it. Service corridor, section 7, near the kitchen access. Sarah was moving before Marcus finished speaking. All units possible hostile in section 7, converging now. Do not engage until I arrive. Suspect may have dead man's trigger. She ran through the Congress Center's back corridors, Max keeping pace effortlessly. Her weapon was drawn but held low. Too many security personnel and staff around to risk friendly fire. Section 7's service corridor was narrow, lined with supply closets and equipment storage. Sarah slowed her approach, using hand signals to coordinate with 2 Secret Service agents who'd responded to her call. At the corridor's end, a figure hunched over a phone, frantically typing, "Not Cross." Someone younger, less confident, one of the Syndicate's lower-level operatives, probably thinking he was coordinating the attack. "Freeze! Hands up now!" The operative spun, terror on his face. He was barely 20, wearing a catering staff uniform. His hands shot up, the phone clattering to the floor. "Don't shoot! Please don't shoot! I'm just sending updates. That's all they asked me to do." Sarah moved forward carefully, the Secret Service agents covering her. She kicked the phone away from the operative, then patted him down. No weapons, no explosives. Just a terrified kid way out of his depth. "Updates to who?" Sarah demanded. "I don't know. They gave me the phone, told me to photograph security positions and send them every hour. That's all. I needed the money. They paid me $5,000 just to—" "Where were you sending the updates?" "I don't know. It was all encrypted. The app just said, 'Upload successful,' and—" Max suddenly barked, the warning tone Sarah knew too well. She spun, weapon tracking, searching for the threat, and saw Victor Cross standing 20 feet away, having emerged from a storage closet. He held no weapon, no detonator, just a calm smile and the confidence of a man who'd already won. "Hello, Agent Collins, enjoying the party?" Sarah's weapon centered on his chest. "On the ground, now." "I don't think so. You see, I'm not here to detonate anything. I'm here to watch you fail." Cross gestured casually at the operative. "This young man has been sending me real-time intelligence about your trap, the bomb under the stage, the monitoring systems, the whole elaborate scheme. I've known about it for hours." Sarah's stomach dropped. "Impossible. Only 7 people knew. 8, actually. You forgot about the janitor who was cleaning the ballroom when you and Marcus were installing the device. He's been on my payroll for 6 months." Cross checked his watch. "And in about 90 seconds, the real attack begins. Not here, not at the Congress Center, but at the secondary location where I always plan to strike." "There is no secondary location. We cleared the museum, not the museum. Somewhere you'd never think to look because it's so obvious, so mundane, so perfectly invisible." Cross's smile widened. "The hotel where all the world leaders are staying. Specifically the mechanical room that controls the building's gas lines. My operatives have been there for 3 days, wearing maintenance uniforms, modifying the pressure regulators. At precisely 11:47 p.m., those regulators will fail catastrophically, flooding 16 floors with natural gas. And at 11:48, a single spark from a modified thermostat will ignite it all." Sarah's mind raced through the implications. The world leaders weren't just attending the summit. They were staying at the Marriott Marquis downtown. 15 presidents, 10 prime ministers, 7 chancellors, all concentrated in one building that was about to become a massive fuel-air bomb. "You're lying. Check with your M. Ask him to confirm the hotel address of the British Prime Minister, the German Chancellor, the Japanese Premier. They're all there, Sarah, all about to die while you stand here listening to me." Sarah triggered her radio. "Command, this is 007. Possible gas attack at the Marriott Marquis. Evacuate all summit attendees immediately." Static answered her, then M's voice, crackling with interference. "Say again, Collins. You're breaking up." "The hotel. Evacuate the hotel. Gas explosion imminent." More static, then silence. Cross laughed. "Electronic jamming. Another lovely bit of technology. Right now your communication is scrambled. By the time your message gets through, it'll be too late." Sarah looked at her watch. 11:46 p.m. 2 minutes. She made a decision that violated every protocol, every regulation, every rule of engagement. She turned her weapon on the young operative. "Call them. Right now. Use whatever communication channel they gave you and tell them to abort, or I will shoot you." The operative's face went white. "I can't. They'll kill me." "I'll kill you right now if you don't." "Sarah, stop," Cross said calmly. "You won't shoot an unarmed prisoner. You're not that person. You're a hero, bound by rules and ethics and a moral code that makes you predictable. That makes you weak. Sarah's finger tightened on the trigger. Every fiber of her being screamed against this choice, but thousands of lives hung in the balance. Then Max moved. The dog ran, not at Cross, not at the operative, but toward the exit, toward the street, toward the hotel 6 blocks away. And Sarah understood. "You want to know the difference between you and me," Sarah said to Cross, lowering her weapon. "You think ethics make me weak, but ethics are what make the hard choices meaningful." She ran after Max, leaving Cross and the operative behind. Behind her, she heard the Secret Service agents moving to secure both men, heard Cross shouting something about being too late. She ran through the Congress Center, burst onto the street, and sprinted toward the Marriott Marquis, with Max leading the way. Her radio finally cleared, M's voice breaking through. "Collins, what's happening? Your message was garbled. Gas attack at the Marriott. Evacuate now. I'm 2 minutes out. Already in progress. Fire alarms pulled. Security's clearing floors. But there are 800 people in that building. We need more time." Sarah checked her watch while running. 11:47 p.m. 1 minute. She couldn't save everyone, couldn't even evacuate one floor in 60 seconds. But she could find the mechanical room, could disable the system manually if she reached it in time. The Marriott Marquis loomed ahead, its distinctive cylindrical architecture unmistakable. Sarah didn't slow at the entrance. She crashed through the revolving door, Max beside her, both of them moving with desperate speed. "Mechanical room!" she shouted at the concierge. "Where?" "Basement level. But, ma'am, there's an evacuation." Sarah was already moving, hitting the stairwell and taking stairs 3 at a time. Her lungs burned, her legs screamed. Max bounded ahead, his tactical vest still feeding her data even through this chaos. Basement level. The mechanical room door was locked, but Sarah shot the mechanism without hesitation. She kicked it open and found herself in a nightmare of pipes, pressure gauges, and industrial equipment. And she found 2 people in maintenance uniforms frantically working at a control panel. They looked up as she entered, their hands moving toward weapons. Sarah shot the first one in the shoulder, non-lethal but incapacitating. The second lunged at her, and Max took him down with brutal efficiency. Sarah reached the control panel. 11:47:45 p.m., 15 seconds. The system was already in failure cascade, pressure regulators opening, flooding gas throughout the building's ventilation system. Sarah's hands flew over controls she barely understood, following instinct and desperate logic. "Thompson!" she shouted into her radio. "I'm at the mechanical room. Talk me through emergency gas shutdown." Thompson's voice came through, tense but focused. "Red valve, top left. Turn it clockwise until it stops." Sarah grabbed the valve. It wouldn't budge. Rust or deliberate sabotage, she couldn't tell. She pulled harder, muscles straining. 11:47:55 p.m. "It's stuck." "Then you need leverage. Find a pipe, a wrench, anything." Max barked and grabbed something in his teeth, a heavy wrench from a tool cart. He brought it to Sarah, and she jammed it onto the valve, using the extended leverage to... The valve turned. She spun it clockwise, watching pressure gauges drop, hearing the whoosh of gas flow stopping. Throughout the building above, natural gas that had been flooding ventilation systems began dissipating. 11:48 p.m. Nothing exploded. Sarah collapsed against the control panel, gasping for breath. Max pressed against her, his tail wagging. They'd done it. Against impossible odds, with seconds to spare, they'd saved hundreds of lives. Her radio crackled. "Collins, confirm status. Gas system shut down. Building is safe. 2 Syndicate operatives in custody. Copy. The summit attendees are being relocated to secure facilities. The gala is cancelled, but everyone's alive." M's voice carried profound relief. "Bloody hell, Agent Collins. That was too close." "It always is, sir." Sarah allowed herself 30 seconds of rest, then hauled herself upright. There was still work to do, securing evidence, processing prisoners, ensuring no other threats remained active. But as she climbed the stairs back to ground level, Max beside her, and the knowledge of hundreds of saved lives warming her chest, Sarah felt something she hadn't felt in years. Peace. Not the peace of safety or rest, but the peace of purpose fulfilled, of hard choices made and consequences accepted, of being exactly the person James Bond believed she could be when he passed her that legendary number. Outside, emergency vehicles filled the street. Fire trucks, police cruisers, ambulances. Normal citizens going about heroic work, unaware of how close they'd come to catastrophe. Marcus found her in the chaos, his face streaked with tears. They arrested Cross. He's demanding a lawyer now, finally stopped his theatrical villain routine. And Sarah, I checked the sister thing. You were right. She doesn't exist. Cross fabricated everything, the photos, the videos, all of it. I almost killed people for a person who never existed. But you didn't kill anyone. You chose better. That's what matters. I'm probably going to jail, aren't I? For what I did tonight. The hostages, the bomb. You're probably going to therapy, Sarah interrupted. Lots of it. And community service, and supervised probation. But M has already indicated he'll recommend leniency given your cooperation and the intelligence you provided. You're not a terrorist, Marcus. You're a victim who became a survivor. There's a difference. Marcus nodded, unable to speak through emotion. Sarah put a hand on his shoulder. 7 years ago, I saved you from the streets. Tonight, you saved yourself from something worse. I'd say that makes us even. 3 weeks later, Sarah stood in a small cemetery on the outskirts of Atlanta. The weather was perfect, cool autumn air, golden leaves drifting from trees, sunlight filtering through clouds in cathedral rays. The memorial stone was simple, unmarked, except for a date. It didn't carry Marcus's name because Marcus was still alive, still working through trauma with therapists and slowly rebuilding his life. This memorial was for the person he might have become if Sarah had made a different choice that night, 7 years ago. Some people think saving someone means preventing their death, Sarah said quietly, Max sitting beside her. But sometimes saving someone means preventing them from becoming the person they fear most. Marcus faced that tonight. He looked into the darkness and chose light. Not because it was easy, but because someone once believed he was worth saving. Max leaned against her leg, offering silent support. Sarah's phone buzzed. A message from M. New assignment. Paris. Possible Syndicate cell regrouping after Cross's capture. Wheels up in 6 hours. Congratulations on Atlanta. 07. Bond would be proud. Sarah smiled, pocketing the phone. The Syndicate would regroup. New threats would emerge. Evil, it seemed, was infinitely renewable, but so was courage, so was hope, and so was the determination of one woman and her dog to stand against darkness, no matter the cost. Come on, Max, Sarah said, turning from the memorial. We've got work to do. Max barked once, acknowledgement and agreement, and together the legendary 007 and her partner walked toward whatever came next, ready for anything. Afraid of nothing, carrying the weight of a legacy they'd earned through blood, sweat, and the absolute refusal to surrender. Some bonds transcend species, transcend training, transcend even the impossible odds of a world that sometimes seems determined to destroy itself. The bond between Sarah and Max was one of those. And as long as that bond held, the world had protectors who would never stop fighting for what was right, no matter how dark the night became.